Okay. Hopefully everybody can still hear me. So, okay, so welcome everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Shannon Narimura, and I am the Volunteer Generation Fund Program Officer for Nevada Volunteers. And so today's Lunch to Learn is all about VGF and if it's right for your organization. I personally think it's right for just about any organization who wants to grow and strengthen their volunteer programs. And I'm particularly passionate about it because I feel like this is a really awesome opportunity for particularly smaller nonprofits or nonprofits who have never worked with federal funds before to get their feet wet and get some money to help them with their volunteer programs. So I wanted to start off with a little background information on who is Nevada Volunteers. So Nevada Volunteers serves as the primary resource center for volunteer and national service efforts within the state of Nevada. We are a part of a network of state commissions, and across the U.S., there's 52 that administers AmeriCorps programs and makes it possible for those members to create positive change within Nevada, and also build relationships and resources. And volunteerism is also a part of that. And so that's kind of who we are and what we do. And then the Generation Fund came about with the Edward M. Kennedy Serve America Act, and it supports organizations and service commissions to boost the impact of volunteers on critical community needs. So, which is something that you're all doing. And so for us, this is mainly about capacity building. So VGF does cover some other things that other commissions across the country are utilizing it for, such as disaster relief. Still has to do with volunteerism, but for us in Nevada, it is specifically for capacity building. And so you can see there's currently 22 state service commissions who are administering VGF initiatives that total $6.4 million. So deep diving into the grants, the funding information, we have $141,500 available to grant out. So we apply for the Volunteer Generation Fund grant through AmeriCorps, and then we are awarded as a commission, and then we subgrant those awards out to organizations within the state. So the 141.5 is what we have available to grant out to organizations. They will be granted out in mini grants of $5,000 to $25,000. And then this is a monthly cost reimbursement grant funding. So what that means is you apply for this grant, and then you will purchase your items, pay your staff, whatever it is that you're utilizing the grant for up front, and then provide us with a reimbursement form that also has all of the documentation that goes along with it for us to then reimburse you. So you'll pay up front, and then we reimburse you back. So the funding priorities for this grant have to do with the 9 best practices for volunteer management. So these are the areas where we know that if you're taking care of every single one of these, you could have a perfect volunteer program, so to speak, perfect in quotations. And so these are our 9 focus areas. So the grant request needs to have at least implementation of one or more of these best practices. So that's not to say that that's the only thing that you can have in there. It's literally anything around volunteer management or building capacity within your volunteer program. But you have to clearly define one of these within the grant application. So I just want to point that out. If you have any questions on what these things are or what could be included with them, I'm definitely happy to answer those questions. And we're going to talk about some examples of how the grant's been utilized by subgrantees to this point after we're done. So who is eligible for this grant. The following Nevada-based non-federal entities are eligible. That's nonprofit organizations, Indian tribes, local governments, institutions of higher education, and state agencies. So actually a wide array of people who are eligible, and hopefully we'll start to see a little more diversity in these applications that we're receiving as we get the word out about BGF. So here in the state of Nevada, just so you know, we had one micro grant for $2,500 for specifically volunteer recognition. And then this year was our mini grants for all things volunteer management. And so this is going into our second full year of VGF. In other states, it's been around for several years, but we're fairly new. And full transparency, I'm new as well. So I've been with Nevada Volunteers a little over a year. And so I have all sorts of fundraising and volunteer management background. That's what I've done since I was about 18 years old. But the whole grant world is very new to me, and so I learn right along with my subgrantees. Hopefully that makes them feel better. Sometimes I question that, but I do my best. So, okay, so the project period, applications are due September 23rd by 5 p.m. Then they'll move on to our peer review. Peer review and clarification will take place in October, and then the award notice will go out November 1st of 2022. The estimated award amounts anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000. So 5 is the minimum that you're going to apply for, and $25,000 is your max. The funding is dependent upon the scope of the project and whether or not you can fully tell us within your application how you plan to spend those funds and if they can be spent out. I will say take some time to think about this. It's a 8-month grant period that you're going to be expending funds, and a lot of subgrantees this time around have had some issues with spending out the full $25,000. Now, there's some reasons for that, but it's just something to think on, because if you don't spend your funds don't come back to us. They go back to AmeriCorps, and so then that's just federal funds, that we're not utilizing, and we could have probably funded another grantee. So make sure that you're really thinking about your project and what you're going to spend on it, and what is expendable within the 8 months. Also wanted to let you know that it is possible that your grant application could be partially funded based on basically need and whether or not the scope of your project fits your, the amount of money that you're asking for. So that's something to keep in mind. So application submission, we're going to try to make this as streamlined and easy as possible. So if you can please put all of the items needed into one email that is sent to me, and that comes to me by the 23rd of September at 5 o'clock. I'm going to go over some of these things in a little more detail, but you're going to attach your application, your proposed budget, your proof of nonprofit status, a copy of the most recent 990, your organizational chart, the most recent single audit or audited financial statements, if you have it. So last time, I know this caused a lot of stress. A lot of the organizations were, I don't know what that is. I don't know that if I have that. I don't think we've ever been audited. Therefore, we're not eligible. That is not the case. If you don't do this, you don't have to supply it. And a lot of smaller organizations are not going to have that, and we understand that. So don't get hung up on that. And then source of match funding, which we'll talk about. So the application, it looks like this. Make sure that your application is filled out completely. If you can type it instead of filling it out with pen, it's better. Just for legibility purposes, you have a group of peer reviewers who really want to make sure that they're thoroughly judging your application. And so it's important that they can read it. Also, make sure that your narrative fully explains your project and answers questions based on review criteria. So we had some narratives, sometimes they tell an excellent story and they talk about the amazing things that you do, but they're not talking about the project at hand and what you're requesting to be funded and why. So just make sure that what you put in there really answers the review questions. If you are unsure of something on the application, please reach out ASAP. I know sometimes we've had applicants who have started this and they said, oh, well, I don't have a DUNS number, or I don't know what a UEI number is. And so they just figure, I can't do it, it's too much, and they stop. And we can help you reach out for those numbers. It's not a huge process. We've had several organizations who have applied for this and then went and got those numbers specifically because they received our grant. So it is definitely doable, and don't let that scare you off. The
Shannon,
proposed budget.
I have a question.
Yes.
I saw on the slide that it said you have to approve your nonprofit status, but I thought that government agencies can apply as well. It says the eligibility says nonprofit organizations, Indian tribes, local governments, institutions of higher ed, and state agencies. Is that still correct?
Yes, it is correct. And yes, I do know what you're talking about. So your status will be different, and so you don't have to worry about that part, if that makes sense.
Okay, I just wanted to check because the slide said like proof of nonprofit status when you submit your application. So
yeah. So yes, we know there are some exceptions. Hopefully, did that answer that well enough for you?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, so proposed budget. So this is what our little budget template looks like. And so I just want to make sure that all of your numbers add up correctly. It is an Excel spreadsheet. So I know sometimes people have gone in and added or deleted rows and columns, and then when the budget was submitted, the numbers didn't add up, and it's just because of the formula that was in the cell didn't add what they added. And so please make sure that your numbers add up correctly. Also make sure that your budget matches your narrative. So we have had instances where the narrative talks about this amazing, huge project, but then in the budget, all they have is like they're going to pay staff, right? They're going to hire staff and pay staff to do this. But in the narrative itself, it does not talk about how that staff person is going to bring about the change or complete the project. That the staff person isn't even mentioned in there. And so you want to make sure that your budget ties back into your narrative. Your approved budget that you're going to send in with your application is how you must spend out your funds. So make sure that you're not just, I need to finish this application real fast and turn it in, and I'm going to slap some numbers in there because we think this is what we're going to do. I realize that not everybody has the project planned out in advance, and some of you are guessing a little bit, which is okay, because we do have an amendment process. So you will have to fill out an amendment to move funds from one category to another. So this year, a great example has been staff. A lot of our subgrantees applied to get a volunteer coordinator and get that person paid. The background checks took a very long time. And so now they're needing to move money because they can't expend out the amount that they budgeted for. And so they want to move it into supplies to buy like iPads or something to sign their volunteers in, which is fine. We can do that because we'd rather have you spend the money. But there is a process to it, and it does need to be approved prior to you expending the funds in a different area. So that's something that I work on with subgrantees once we realize that that might be an issue in expending the funds. Make sure that your budget does not include anything not allowed or reasonable. And so this is something I normally go into with once you have gotten the award and we're getting ready to move into expending your funds. But last time I noticed that some of these things showed up on the budget, and so I wanted to go over them with you in advance just to give you some ideas. So everything that is is unallowable is in the 2 CFR parts 200 and 2205. I will say, just Google that if you don't know what it is. It's very wordy and sometimes frustrating. So that's what I am here for. If you are unsure of something and you can't find it in there, you just reach out to me before you expend the funds to make sure that they're good. However, things up front that are not allowable is sales tax, gift cards of any kind, cash awards, utilizing grant money for personal fundraising or sponsorship of an event that you do, alcohol, any entertainment expenses, which includes it includes your DJ. It can include food if it's not done properly. So you can't have a party. You have to have events that have educational or team building purposes if you're going to do food. And then tickets to like ball games or amusement parks or whatever, that's all entertainment and unallowable. And then payment to anyone from grant funds without proper background check. And I think we talk about the background check here in a minute, and if not, I'll definitely go into it because it's a pain. Utilizing funds for printing. I wanted to make sure everyone knew this up front as well. Anything that you print utilizing the VGF funds will be required to have at a minimum the AmeriCorps logo. You may also use the double logo where it makes sense, which is what I have here on the screen. So that's AmeriCorps and Nevada Volunteers. So some of the items that I thought of that we ran into a problem this year, recognition items, which include like swag, if you're getting T-shirts or hats or water bottles or whatever made for your volunteers. They will need at a minimum the AmeriCorps logo. Handbooks and manuals, things that you have printed like on paper would be great to have the double, just so that, Nevada Volunteers is getting some recognition for, the funds that you're utilizing, but it's not mandatory. Invitations and agendas, and then marketing materials that you're going to put out into the community. So if you're using the grant for these things, then the AmeriCorps logo needs to show up on those things. And I will provide the logo options to all subgrantees. So there's different colors, there's black and white. The singular AmeriCorps logo that we want you to use has, it says AmeriCorps Nevada. So at least it distinguishes the state if you're not going to use the double. But we'll provide those to you after you receive the award. And I just wanted to make sure everybody knew this up front when they're applying for the grant. So proof of nonprofit status. So I utilize Silver Flume, and the reason why is because I need to know that you're active instead of sometimes people send certificates, but they don't have like an expiration date or they don't say active, and then I have to go look you up anyway. So if everybody can look themselves up on Silver Flume and send it, that's the easiest. If not, then I'll take care of it, but I don't need any other certificate really. So this is the website that I utilize. And then you go down to the bottom where it says additional resources and click on business entity search. And then you're going to put in your organization name here. The other reason why I like to have you do this instead of me is because we've had a couple organizations where the name that they put on the application is not the name that they show up in their documents with on Silver Flume or their DUNS number and everything. And we need to make sure that those match. And so I spent quite some time looking for them before I realized that that wasn't going to work and I needed to reach out anyway. So this is helpful in advance. And just so you guys know, please put the name on the application that shows up on all these documents. And then, so once you find your report and open it, I just hit Control P for the whole screen, and then save it as a PDF to the computer, and you can submit that with your all of the stuff that you need to submit. But it shows me, that whether or not you're active, and that's what I need to see. So matching funds is is new. We have not had to do that so far with BGF. And so that might be a little bit of source of stress for some of you who have never had to do it. We are required this year to do a 24% match. You must be able to demonstrate the ability to identify match at the time of application. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to have secured it. You can put on there whether it is proposed or secured, but you have to demonstrate that you will be able to have it. So anything that is non-AmeriCorps and or like in kind, you could utilize your fundraising dollars, other grants. Also, if you are going to have somebody who is already on staff who is going to oversee the project and you're just going to pay them, you can use their salary as match. But, and here's the caveat for that, if you're going to do that, they still have to go through the background check. And so the background check does take a little bit of time. And so that's just something I want to make sure you understand before you get into it, that the background check can take several months actually to complete. So that's matching. So basically, if your total project is $20,000 and your portion of that would be $4,800, and so you're going to identify that on the application. There's a row or a column for what you're requesting for the grant to pay for and what you will pay for as match. So, and I'm more than happy to talk through this with anybody one-on-one if needed. I am still learning, how this part works because I have not had to do it yet. But I definitely want to make sure everyone is comfortable with this part of the application process. So the review information that is in the NOFO, it is bulky, but that is there to help you have the best application possible. So you really want to pay attention within the NOFO on page 4, where it talks about program need, and it says evidence of an unmet need in the community and the extent to which the need satisfies our priorities. And so these are the things that the peer review committee is looking for within your application. So definitely pay attention to those things when you're filling that out. And I didn't want to spend a lot of time going over that section, but if you guys have questions on any of these things, please let me know. I just think last time we got a few applications that they took the application and they were answering the question, but they didn't fully answer it. And I'm not sure that they went to the NOFO to get the information that they needed to make sure it was complete. The review process. So after I get your materials, there's an internal review process. I go through the applications to make sure that they are complete and that I'm not missing any information or there isn't any issue, that the budget doesn't have any unallowable costs on it. And then it's going to go to our peer review committee, which is a group of impartial judges that basically they go through and they read every single application. And I know from some of my volunteers, they read them and reread them and reread them. So they really try to do the most thorough job they possibly can to ensure that the right projects are being funded. If they have any questions or we need clarification, you will get an email from me asking for that. That does not mean that that doesn't mean you're getting awarded. It just means that we need clarification before we can move your application on within the process. And you'll also be given a deadline to answer those questions if needed. If you don't get an email, that just means we didn't need clarification. It doesn't mean you're not out of the running. I know sometimes I get emails from people who are very anxious about getting the funds. And so I haven't heard anything. So I just want to make sure we're okay. No news is good news. And then everybody will find out what happens on the award date. So that's kind of the review process. We do have a risk assessment that we go through each applicant to ensure that they have financial stability, that they have the organizational capacity to, to run the program. Everybody who is a brand new applicant is automatically considered high risk. It doesn't matter how amazing your organization is or how much structure you have or whatever it is, you're going to be considered high risk. And that just means that I get to talk to you more often. That's all. That it doesn't mean that you're not going to get funded or that you have to do necessarily anything extra in the beginning. So that's that process. If you have any questions, let me know. The award date is November 1st. And what that means is every single person who has put in an application will find out whether or not they are awarded. So every person, whether they get the grant or not, gets an email. So if you do not hear from me on November 1st, that's when you should reach out and say, hey, I didn't hear. And I will say sometimes my emails go into spam. Sometimes they just don't go through. So it is possible, but I do my best to make sure that every single person knows on the award date what's going on. So the National Service Criminal History Check requirements, and I'm sure you're going to hear about this from the subgrantees that I have on the call today who have had to utilize it. So anyone being paid out through the grant, whether it's staff or volunteers, unless they are under the age of 18, must go through the National Service Criminal History Check. We utilize FieldPrint and TruScreen. That's who you have to use. There's no way around that. The results get submitted once you have them. They get submitted in a secure portal to Nevada Volunteers. You'll never send me email results. That's because of PII. But whoever is awarded will be sent a very detailed email with step-by-step instructions on how to do this. So I just wanted to make sure I put it in here because it sounds amazing to utilize a grant to get a volunteer manager, especially if you don't have one and you don't have the ability to do it all yourself. We have a few organizations where the ED, is just doing everything and needed to hire that person to really get the program moving, but didn't realize that it was going to take so long to get this done. So the real reason why I moved up the application process and peer review process this year is so that I could award on November 1st, which gives all of November and December to be working on these requirements. So if you are awarded, you will want to start and you have staff or volunteers paid, you'll want to start immediately. So I just wanted to make sure I stressed that because we cannot reimburse you until that whole process is done and Nevada Volunteers has come back and given you the okay to start paying that person. I mean, you can hire them and pay them, but we can't reimburse you until the whole process has been completed. So these are the administrative and reporting requirements. It seems like a lot, but I really don't think it is, in my opinion, and hopefully the other subgrantees on the call don't. But I just wanted to go over them real quickly. There's a pre and post assessment. Sometimes it's like a survey. And then this year I just did a paper that has pre and post on one piece of paper, and you fill them out pre and post, and then we can see, how you've evolved and how your program has been strengthened. And so that should take 5 to 10 minutes of your time. There is training and technical assistance, and I'm going to go over that separately. We will have monthly one-on-one calls. Those calls are for you to ask any questions that you might have. I look at your reports, and if I have questions, it's my opportunity to talk to you about those things. Really, my time to make sure that your project is coming to fruition and that you're doing all the things that you said you were going to do in your narrative. But it's also a time for me to work with you one-on-one should you have questions about anything volunteer management and you need help or opinions, or you want me to look at something, whatever that may be, that's your time with me for that purpose. We're also going to ask that you register on NV Volunteer Connect. That is our database that houses all of our nonprofits, so that when we have volunteers that come to our website, they can easily look up all the ways that they can volunteer throughout the state, either by cause, by area, number of, if it's a volunteer group and you allow children, whatever that may be, that's what NV Volunteer Connect is. And just so you know, right now, when you Google volunteers in Nevada, we are one of the very first little things that pop up there. So people are clicking on our website quite often. And we do now also have the ability for court-appointed volunteers to go on there and see which organizations they can work with, instead of calling around trying to figure it out. And so then they can directly contact those organizations from our website. You're also going to need to register for our Basecamp networking platform. That's super simple. You just, I'll send you a link and you get added to it. And then that is basically so that you all can talk to each other, all of the volunteer coordinators, managers, whatever, anyone who works with volunteers in the state can share ideas, resources. I also put lunch and learns on the calendar on there. I will probably be announcing Dovium meetings on there, things like that. So we invite, just so you know, whether or not you apply for this grant or not, we invite all Nevada volunteer managers to join that. And so there will be a link that I'll send out after this. And so you can join it whether or not you get this grant. You'll also submit one nomination for the Governor's Points of Light Awards. We hope that you'll submit more than one, but one is required. And so there's 9 different categories for that. And you're able to select whether you'd like to submit your own nonprofit, a exemplary volunteer, be your volunteer manager, and those aren't meant to take forever. I think people say, they spend roughly an hour on their nomination. You're also going to submit monthly progress reports. Those are very short. I asked 2 questions, the number of new volunteers that you've had, and the number of hours that your volunteers have put in for the month. And then below that, there is a place for you to give a brief description of what you guys have been doing towards your project, or what your volunteer hours are all about, just to give us an idea of, what it is you're doing and how you're moving forward. And that's usually where my questions come from for our one-on-one calls. You're also going to submit a mid and final report. And those can be really simple. They can be PowerPoint slides. They can be however you want to do it. I mean, you can do it in Word if you want, but it's literally just a fluffier version of what you've been sending each month that basically gives you the opportunity to brag about what you guys have been doing with the funds and supply some pictures. I like to give these reports to our commissioners so that they can see what we've been doing, the amazing things that you guys are doing in the communities. And I think it's really important for them to see that. And then each month you're going to submit a reimbursement report, and that's, a list of your expenditures with your receipts and your supporting documents. So I don't think in total these things are very time consuming, but I'll let you talk to some of the sub-grantees about that. The training and technical assistance, these are in the form of these lunch and learns. They happen the 3rd Thursday of each month. They will not take place in November and December. But they are always from 11 to 12:30. January, that lunch and learn is for sub-grantees only. We go more in depth and talk about what you're going to be doing with the grants and unallowable expenses. Just a reminder, how you submit reports and who to, things like that. But our sub-grantees are required to attend 4, and the January one does count. So these are always going to be on topics that are around volunteer management and those 9 best practices. So we've done recognition, orientation. We do have guest speakers sometimes that come in and talk about, using storytelling to engage and recruit volunteers, things like that. So those are great to attend, and we hope that you take that information and utilize it. Again, anyone is available to attend these lunch and learns. You do not have to be a subgrantee. They're put on the base camp. They're also advertised on our social media. And so I do want to point out, though, that participation is expected and required to count. So this year I've learned some hard lessons about taking attendance, and people have a tendency to turn off their camera and turn off their mic. And then I realize at some point, whether they've been called on or the thing has ended and they're still on for forever, that they're really not attending the lunch and learn. And so if you are a subgrantee, it is you are expected to have your camera on or to speak up or to participate in some way. Everyone else can do whatever they want, but it's kind of a requirement of our subgrantees to participate. So there will be a follow-up email that has the links to anything and everything you need that we talked about today. I'll make sure it has the NOFO. Unfortunately, somehow we got a crazy link out there to the unfinished version of the NOFO. I apologize if you got it. We have done everything under the sun to try to get rid of it, and it is still there and working, unfortunately. So ignore that for me if you would, but I will send that out again. Make sure you have the application and the budget, and then also how to be a part of our base camp, and everything else that we've talked about within this email that you might need, or I mean this lunch and learn that you might need. And then, so now we're gonna, I have opportunity for questions, but we can do questions first, or you can hear from the subgrantees, which might actually answer some of your questions first. So maybe let's start with the subgrantees that I asked to speak today. We talk about their experience a little bit about how they've utilized the funds and what they, pros and cons. I asked them to be extremely transparent so that you really have a good understanding of how it works. So Amy, do you want to go first? You're muted.
I'd be happy to. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Bradshaw, and I'm with Mesquite Senior Games. Now, we are a nonprofit, and we are promoting the health and fitness of anyone 50 and better. And in doing so, we offer fun, casual athletic competitions in everything from bowling to shotgun sports, pickleball to table tennis, and pretty much everything in between. Now, we've been working with Shannon and her team for, over a year now, I guess, on 2 different grants. The first grant we applied for and received was for $2,500, and it allowed us to purchase Mesquite Senior Games logoed apparel for our volunteers to wear while they were volunteering at our events. And we were just thrilled by how much our volunteers really liked their new clothing. And it made such a huge difference in our overall presentation. We looked so professional, and it was awesome. Now, our second grant was for just shy of $12,000, and it allowed us to purchase the following. We got a volunteer management software. We got a laptop and a printer and a couple of tablets. Now, those have made us much more efficient. And we also were able to give a nice salary to pay to our volunteer coordinator, Beth Kaplinger, to set up the volunteer software. Now, I got to tell you, this grant was a game changer for Mesquite Senior Games. Beth did a great job setting it up, and now our volunteer coordinating program is streamlined by this software and has resulted in much better communications between our offices and our volunteers. It allows volunteers to review available volunteer positions that we put on the website for it. And they can pick and choose what activities they want to volunteer for, and they can schedule the days and the hours that suit them. But that's not all. The software has really allowed us to make a very positive impact on our entire community. Now, we're in Mesquite, so we're a fairly small town. But we've used this software to benefit other local nonprofits in dealing with their volunteer needs. For example, our local Little League and another nonprofit called Raise, they all benefited from the software. We have over 126 registered volunteers in our database right now. And it's now possible and actually very simple for us to market other nonprofits' volunteer needs and actually lend out our Mesquite Senior Games volunteers to help with other nonprofit events during our really slow season because we don't have many competitions in the summer. So when other nonprofits have need for volunteers, and they can come to us and we can help them reach out to those folks because we have this software now. So the Nevada Volunteer Grant not only helped MSG immensely, it's really served our entire community. And we have logged in, I think about almost 2,900 hours since we got this system up and going first of the year. So it's really been something. Okay, now a word about the administration of the grants. Since they are federal grants, there are some hoops to jump through. You got to get your SAMS registration, your DUNS number, the CAGE number. All those are required for your nonprofits before you can even apply. Now, you get those through government websites, and they can be a little tricky. The application process itself is lengthy and detailed, but it really does help you focus on what your goals are. And I want to reiterate what Shannon said about the 9 best practices. In reading those, and really spend a lot of time looking at the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity, because you'll learn so much about what the grantor wants what they want, and it helps you really understand your own organization. And I thought it was awesome. But once your grant is awarded, then you've got the training to make sure you understand all the federal grant requirements. That training was done online and takes maybe a couple of hours to get through, but it's really helpful so that you're doing things right the first time. Yeah, and like Shannon said, those background checks, those are a real bugaboo, and you got to work through something called TruScreen. Oh, quit laughing, Shannon. You're working through TruScreen and FieldPrint, and they were a pain in the you-know-what, and I know Shannon and her compliance officers struggled pretty much as we did because it was new for all of us, but we got through it. And yeah, the monthly reporting that's required, it's going to document both your progress and your reimbursement requests, plus those one-on-one phone calls. And I found all these systems to be very well organized, and they really didn't take that much time. Shannon and her compliance team have been very helpful. Like I said, even though they were learning right along with us. But all in all, these 2 grant experiences were great and well worth the benefits that our nonprofit and actually our entire town got out of these grants. So honestly, I can't thank Nevada Volunteers and AmeriCorps enough for believing in us and that we could accomplish with just a little bit of help from them. So thanks a lot, Shannon.
Yay! Thank you. I love that report. Does anybody have any questions specifically for Amy? Okay.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
If not, I'm gonna have Andy. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
What volunteer management software is it that you all are working with?
We use a license with Galaxy Digital, and it's a product they have called Get Connected. And I believe in some ways, in some devices, it's also called Cause Connect. Or cause something. But if you would need any more information, reach out to me or Beth Kaplinger, our volunteer coordinator. We're happy to give you some information on that. But I think to
be honest, our September or October, I don't remember, Lunch and Learn is going to be on these systems because no matter what the topic is for our Lunch and Learn, we get asked about that every single time. And I thought more people would discuss it in base camp, but we just haven't gotten there yet where people are having conversations. Yeah. So I think we're going to have a whole Lunch and Learn on databases.
I don't think there's one system out there that's perfect for everybody. I think you need to really evaluate them all and see what works best for you. And ours hasn't been 100% easy, and Beth spent a lot of time fiddling with it. After she got it set up and we went through a season, she had to really go back and make some hard decisions and choices about how to best use it. Because unless you have one built specifically for your industry, they're never going to be perfect. But this one is awesome. It works really well for us.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Amy. I am going to go ahead and have Mandy come on and talk a little bit about how they're utilizing the grant.
Okay.
Hi there, I'm Mandy Telleria. I'm the Executive Director of the Good Deed Project. Can everybody hear me?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. I am so thankful to Shannon that I tell her every time I get to see her, whether it's virtual or in person. But this, just as Amy said, this grant was a game changer for us as well. We received also 2 grants. Last year, we received the $2,500 mini grant, and we also utilized it for volunteer t-shirts, and we did a volunteer recognition event and some other fun items for our volunteers, which they all loved. It's so great to see them in their nice fancy shirt when they're out there swinging a hammer or working in the office. And so they love them, we love them, and that was a great investment thanks to that grant, that initial grant. And we then submitted for an award for our organization as a whole, and we were so thrilled to know that we received the Governor's Points of Light Award for Nonprofit of the Year last year. And again, that's just really great recognition for our volunteers, because we are an organization that runs almost primarily with the help of volunteers. And that just means to them that they know they're doing really great work in the community, and that makes them want to keep investing in the lives of others. And, you know, we couldn't do the work without them. So that was really great. And then we then submitted for the grant that was the $25,000 grant, and we received the full $25,000. We applied for a couple of different things. One of the big things that we really needed was a volunteer coordinator, and also, you know, some other funding for additional volunteer recognition and some equipment. And so all of that was just really a game changer for us. We were able to hire Jamie, who's on this call, but she was a volunteer with us for many years, and we were able to hire her on as a staff member. And she's been doing amazing. She had already had experience in our programs and such, and jumped right into helping with volunteer coordination. And since then, I mean, it's just, I'm getting a little more sleep at night, but with her help, we've been able to implement new systems to help streamline the volunteer onboarding process, training process, just overall coordination. So with having a person dedicated to you know, coordinating the volunteers, recruiting them, maintaining communications, and, you know, scheduling them, it's a I mean, it's a big job. And it's, you know, if you're a volunteer based organization, it's necessary to have somebody to help you with that. But I just want to say, like, it's just taken our organization up like 5 levels. I mean, we were able to make immediate implementation on some of these systems because we were just ready to do it, but just needed dedicated help to do so. Our volunteers love having somebody that they can have, you know, readily available for communications and questions and such, that is dedicated just to helping them get their, you know, job done in serving the community. So we've had feedback in that direction as well. People, you know, love Jamie on board and helping, you know, getting started when they first start as a volunteer, or even longtime volunteers. They also still need assistance, and they just like having somebody there. And with me trying to run the organization, I was just getting so spread so thin. I also really appreciate having that assistance as well. Amy mentioned a platform. That's our next step. We are looking forward to upgrading our spreadsheet system into more of a professional platform. But we have utilized the help of JotForms, is the program we've used for onboarding and volunteer coordination, and that just funnels right into our Google spreadsheets because we use Google Docs and Google Sheets. So we use a combination of those platforms to help us do all of our coordination. And that's been very helpful to us, but we're going to look into also adding a platform as well to that system. So in general, that's the big impact that we've had through the funding. As far as applying for the application, it's fairly straightforward as long as you have all of your, you know, pieces of information, like Amy mentioned, the DUNS number, SANS number, and all of those. I would recommend, if you don't have them, I would just start going on and getting those numbers set up so that the application process is easier for you to get through. And as Shannon mentioned, the more specific you are as to how you're going to utilize the funds, I think is helpful for the reviewer. And you know, we were very specific on our application, and thankfully we received the full 25,000. And we are always trying to keep in communication with Shannon as to how we're doing and how we're moving along and utilizing the funds. And she can, you know, kind of chime in herself, but she's given us great feedback on the impact that, you know, or the improvements that she has seen and the progress that we've made over the last few months. So we know how to stretch a dollar around here. So I've been able to really maximize those $25,000. To me, it feels like we received $75,000, to be quite honest with you. And so it's just a matter of really giving some thought as to how you would utilize those funds to put them to good use. And so we'll be applying again in hopes that we can then take another big leap forward as a, you know, as primarily a volunteer organization. And I really recommend that you apply and don't get intimidated by some of the requirements that might be on there. Just work through them. Shannon has been incredibly helpful in answering questions as well. So I'm sure if you came across a question or two on the application, she'd be more than happy to help you. And also, if you wanted to reach out to us via Basecamp, we can all chime in. If we've already received the grant, I'm willing to offer any advice or feedback as well. Jamie also can help with that. And I will say there have been some challenges, but I think with Shannon making that change on the due date and award date will make a big difference in the challenges. You'll still have them, but at least you have time to work through them, because those platforms can be difficult. It's just, I don't know how to explain the challenges really, but when you're trying to get the background checks and things, Shannon's laughing because it's just hard to explain what the challenges actually are. It's just trying to get signed up even for the platform is challenging. And then there's different sign up sheets. It's just a little complicated. So having that extra time is going to be very beneficial in getting all of that taken care of, so that by January 1st, when you're ready to start implementing those funds, especially if you're planning on hiring somebody, then you've already worked through those platform challenges. You already have somebody interviewed and ready to onboard, basically, so that you're not wasting precious time at the beginning of the year not getting reimbursed for it. So that would be my big takeaway. If you are planning to hire anybody or pay anybody out of these funds, you will have to get background checks and fingerprinting done. And of course, you have to do your interview process and all of that as well. So the sooner you get started on that, the better set up you will be January 1st to start spending that money. And that really goes for anything. Like if you're planning on buying equipment or anything, actually, do the shopping now, so you know that what you're going to buy, how much it's going to cost, not just do like, off the top of your head, oh, well, computer will be X amount of dollars, 500. Well, no, then you'll find out, no, actually the computer that we did need with all the, all the different, for us, we need a very robust, system for all the programs that we use. So we actually needed to know the exact amount and not just give a number, because then if you don't do proper pricing, then you don't give the proper budget. And like Shannon said, doing amendments and all of that is not necessarily the way that you want to go about it. You want to be as accurate as possible on the budget. initial budget. So that would just be my suggestion. The more preparation that you do, even in applying for the grant, is just the best way to go, in my opinion. Other than that, I think those would be my my recommendations on the application process. But just go for it, and it was a game changer for us as well. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Mandy. Does anybody have any questions for Mandy? Okay, nobody has questions for Mandy, then I'm just going to open it up for overall questions about the grant. I did want to point out that there was a question in the chat if this could be utilized for recognition again. And the answer to that is yes, that is a part of the 9 best practices. If you don't recognize your volunteers, they don't feel appreciated and they don't stay. So that's a really important part of your process. So I did want to point that out, that yes, that is part of it. What other questions do people have? Are y'all telling me that I did such a good job? Like I was so thorough that you don't have any questions at all?
This is Mindy. I have a
Like
quick question. You had
Okay.
liability insurance as something you would cover. Is that liability for events, for volunteers,
For your volunteers, yeah. Yeah, so that is something that we talk about, in our training, that it's really important for you to have that liability coverage. And you'd be surprised how many nonprofits do not. So yeah, that's a really important component of your overall volunteer program. So that's what that's for. And yes, we do cover that.
That's great, because that is one of the most expensive things we've got. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. What other questions do you have? And thank you, Annie, for telling me that I did a great job. Volunteer coordinator have to do the background check again if we put in for the. Okay, so great question, Beth. The question was, so if you're a current subgrantee and you have a volunteer coordinator who went through the background check, do they have to go through it again? So I asked this question preemptively because I knew it was going to come up. The answer is no, because there's a time frame and you don't have to do it again until that time frame's up, and it won't be, I think, until after this grant cycle is over. So no, you don't. I know. I knew you'd like that, Mandy.
Yeah, I'm over them.
I like that too.
I know, but it is the one thing that got everybody this time around. And the thing that I really enjoyed, Mandy, that you said is like, have somebody already prepared to go. We had a subgrantee who hired 5 different people, 5. 3 of them called the day they were supposed to show up and say, sorry, I've taken another position, because the market right now is just, it's not in our favor, right? And so they said, I've taken another position, I'm not going to come in. And the other 2 just completely ghosted them, never called, never showed up, nothing. But the time it takes to hire people and bring them on and get them, situated, and then for you to do your background check after that. So here we are in August. Our grant cycle ends August 31st, and they have not spent out 1 dime of their staff because they couldn't get somebody in. So these are things to think about, be prepared in advance.
Jamie, thank goodness you didn't ghost me. Just kidding.
And I loved it. A couple of our subgrantees promoted a volunteer. They took a volunteer within their organization and they made them staff. That is the goal, really, to be bringing on your volunteers into those leadership roles or those staff roles. And our Lunch and Learn with Scott, they're not volunteers, they're unpaid staff. They're part of the team. They should be treated as such. And I loved that presentation. And so it's really exciting for me to see you guys who brought on your volunteers as part of your staff.
And
Any other
I-
questions? Oh, go
Can
ahead, Jamie.
I just say that, Shannon, it like not only I think was good for Mandy because I was already familiar with, like she said, the organization and some of the events and stuff, but it actually ended up working out perfectly for me because I had been at a point where I wasn't fully working before, and then I needed to find a job, and it kind of just happened to coincide at the same time. And so it has, allowed me to have a job where I can still take care of my daughter and do the thing that I had gotten involved with just because I liked what the organization was doing. So it's one of those things that I highly encourage anyone who, would normally go look outside first, like look within your volunteers, because you never know what good it may do for you to have a person who already knows some of what you do and everything, but it may actually be the perfect setup for them too. You may be helping them while you're helping yourself. And so it's worked out pretty nicely because I've come in and already known how some things run and knowing that I would be involved with it, whether I'm being paid for it or not. So.
Awesome. Very good point. I hope everybody does that. Any other questions that you guys might have? I mean, if you feel free to call or email me outside of this. Also, just so you know, the email that I'm going to send out with all the links and everything, that will come Monday because I am technically on vacation today. I know it looks like it, but so you will you'll be getting that on Monday, and I didn't want you to go, oh, I haven't received it yet. That's when it'll come. So
I do have one more question. I don't know
Sure.
why. The matching grants,
Yes.
if you have a private donor who wants to give you, whatever it is, $500 that might cover that 24% of your 2,500, does it have to be
Right.
earmarked specifically for what you're applying for, or can it just be a general donation that you've received?
Yeah. Yeah, it can be general. So it can be like, your fundraising dollars, and whether that's from one specific donor or whatever, it just can't be federal money
Perfect. Thank you.
or and AmeriCorps grants, any other, which are federal, but I just wanted to clarify. Yes, Mandy.
Just one thing I was going to mention earlier, because I think it's a big point to make in terms of, we applied for the 25,000 because, we need the money, right? So, but there is a component that you need to consider when you decide on how much money you're going to ask for. You have to be able to make the purchases and expenses first. So you have to have that money in your account initially. So you have to be able to carry over that cost until you get reimbursed. So I would also just have that in mind. Just a second, I have like a.
We could still hear you, even though we couldn't see. Yeah, we can still hear you. We just couldn't see you anymore.
So just the expenses that you are making, you have to be able to carry them. And I recommend, at least 2 to 3 months of funding, so if you're expending, let's just say $4,000 or $5,000 of that grant a month, then you should have at least that amount times 3 to carry over for 2 to 3 months, or else, you just depend if there's a delay in the reimbursement or if there's some sort of issue or whatever, you just don't know. So it's not that they give you a check for the 25,000 up front. And so that's just one point that I wanted to make.
Yeah, that is a good point. I did try to let people know it was reimbursed after the fact, but something that you said jogged this. So we do reimbursements like once a month. And so it's not like if you go and spend $5,000, I'm going to reimburse you the next day. That's not how that works. It has to go through our AP system. And so, and our financial officer too is, we have a new financial officer that for some of you who are old subgrantees, we didn't have that person. Very, very stickler about everything. And so, which is great. She should be. But if there's anything wrong or whatever, that is going to delay your reimbursement. So we don't want you running on the premise that, oh, you're going to get this money back immediately. It sometimes it takes a few weeks even to get that money back. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that up front. Any other questions? Okay, well, I'm going to let everybody enjoy the rest of their day. And thank you to my speakers and thank you for everybody on the call. And I hope to see applications from every single one of you. I hope you have a good one. Bye.